Recently, I've been thinking about the word forgotten and how it affects history and how it affects our day to day lives. In the Earth's history, there's got to be trillions, if not more, of forgotten people and ideas, food, buildings, music, books, whatever is around us that we cherish and use every day. There is a version somewhere that's been forgotten. To me, that thought always makes me a little sad, which I think is one of the reasons why I'm drawn to an instrument that has an old history, that often plays music that comes from the creativity of people now dead, and even some of them would probably seem to most forgotten. In a small way, people like me playing this music helps to keep it alive in a societally collective, recent recollection sort of way. With all of this in mind, today I'll be sharing with you a composer and a baked good that in the span of history had been forgotten. The composer of the day is Tobias Hume, born in, we think, 1575 and died in, we know, 1645. He was born in either England or Scotland. There are differing accounts. What we do know by his own account is that he was a professional soldier and captained the King of Sweden's armies and also led the troops of the Emperor of Russia in battles. We lose track of Hume throughout his life, but find musical compositions and writings from him starting in the early 1600s. He composed two books for the viol, the first part of airs in 1605 and Captain Hume's poetical music in 1607. In his 1605 book, the first part of airs, he writes in a dedication to William Herbert, 3rd Earl of Pembroke, that his idleness was addicted to music. In other words, his passion was music. He lived the later part of his life poor and, what seems to me, unsatisfied. We know he was poor because there's record of him entering into the London Charterhouse in 1629 as a poor brother. To me, he seemed unsatisfied because of documented evidence, such as him seeking being denied patronage from Queen Anne, or in 1611 writing to King Charles I for permission to engage in a military expedition under the King of Sweden, which was denied. Towards the end of his life, he seemed like he was losing some grasp on reality. In what was probably his 70s, Hume sought money from Parliament to re-enter into military service to suppress the rebels in Ireland, which, as you can imagine, was again denied. I'm sharing Tobias Hume's life with you because after his death, his memory seems to fade away for hundreds of years. Kind of like our food for today, the soul cake. Here's what we know about the soul cake. Its basic look, which is a round or square-shaped cake or maybe a bun that might be yeasted with a cross marked on the top. Some people believe that the cakes are more like shortbread or scones, and some think that they are like hot cross buns. We have one known surviving recipe dating back to 1604 from Lady Eleanor Fettyplace's receipt book. Those ingredients on the screen are really all we know. We don't know measurements or texture, taste, or even how they were supposed to be baked. I was able to find quite a few modern recipes on the internet. However, through Durham University's 2018 Bake Off Challenge, I found a recipe which seemed pretty faithful to the original. Using this as a template, I was able to bake a batch for myself. I left out a few ingredients, so I was only using what was in the original recipe. I will write what I changed along with the website and recipe in the description box. So here is what I made. It is kind of like a cross between a soft cookie and a scone. It has a fluffy, soft texture on the inside with a golden brown, crispy exterior. The color is a bit yellow due to the saffron as well as the baking. They are actually really tasty with a lovely fragrance while they bake. This is due to the many spices and the alcohol in the recipe. The last thing that we have quite a bit of information on is what soul cakes were used for. Souling, of course. Souling is a long-running old tradition. We have documented evidence of it dating back to 1380 from a sermon given by a medieval preacher in Shropshire, England, named John Merck. He summed up what souling is rather well when he said, wherefore in olden time good men and women would this day buy bread and deal it for the souls that they loved, hoping with each loaf to get a soul out of purgatory. While at that time period people gave out loaves of bread for souling, for our purposes we are focusing on souling in the 1600s, where they gave out soul cakes instead. The act of souling was generally done by poor adults and children going door to door, collecting the food that people were giving out as a symbolic gesture to buy a way to heaven for the souls of their loved ones who died, who might have ended up in purgatory. However, souling could also be a more involved activity where people performed for their food through reciting poetry, playing music, or even performing small plays. Souling in the 1600s is linked to All Saints' Day and All Souls' Day, which are celebrations for remembering the departed. In today's performance, I'm going to do a bit of souling myself with Tobias Hume's Harke, Harke from the first part of Airs. As far as I know, we don't have documented evidence that Tobias Hume went souling, but considering the time period, his financial straits later in life, the region he lived in, and the fact that he was a musician and composer, in my opinion, it's not really so far-fetched to think that he would or could have gone souling for soul cakes. So, there you have it, two historical treasures buried in the sands of time, only to be excavated by historians hundreds of years later so that now people like me can share them with you.